You guys know that professional development or ongoing professional learning is a passion of mine. And I had the pleasure to speak with Dr. Jim Van Allan, who is the president of the Energy Bus for Schools, which is a program that gives schools the blueprint or the framework to create a positive school culture. We talked about what good professional development really looks like, or good job-embedded professional learning. And we talked about how to be a dynamic presenter when you are presenting in the workshop setting, and how to be a more dynamic presenter in the classroom when you are presenting in front of students. I really enjoyed our conversation because I love talking professional learning, and I think you are going to enjoy it just as much as I did, and I think you're going to learn some things. So let's get started. Hi, friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests, put your leadership in motion, and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Mel Vandevort, and I have a guest with me today. I have Dr. Jim Van Allan, and he is the president of the Energy Bus for Schools. And I am excited to have him here today because he's going to talk a little bit with me about professional development and what that should look like in the adult world. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Great to be with your listeners. I run a very intriguing program that's near and dear to my heart called the Energy Bus for Schools. And we basically, if you boil it down, we help create positive school culture in schools all over the country. We really believe that culture is a competitive advantage when it comes to schools, businesses, everything. Culture is everything. So we help schools develop, a framework to lift people up, energize staff, students. And that's through my partnership with bestselling author John Gordon. Many of your listeners may know who John is. He's written, now 29 books, because I just wrote one with him that came out this week, March, called The Energy Bus for Schools. But he's got a lot of books out, and a lot of schools have read his work as a book study or in their leadership ranks, because he talks all about positive leadership, positive teamwork. So I love the work that I do. I absolutely do. I love going in and out of schools, doing professional development workshops, in-service days, all your teacher's favorite stuff, right? But I do
Exactly.
it in a fun way. I try to make it fun and relevant to what they're going through.
There you go. Key word. Oh my gosh. You are like one of my best friends now, because that was so much of my dissertation was talking about being relevant, because what you're teaching for one person may not be relevant for someone else. It is not a one size fits all professional learning world out there. So good job on that. Definitely. So you're coming to us from Florida. That's awesome.
South Florida, born and raised in Florida. Never lived anywhere else. Love it down here. So absolutely.
Well, I hope the weather is a little steadier down there. We were talking before that it'll be 80 here in Missouri one day and 40 the next. And I'm kind of over that. I'm ready for some just normal weather so you can get outside and get a little vitamin D. So.
Yeah, of course. I get it. I get what you're saying. Totally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So you told us just a little bit about the energy bus for schools. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words this morning, but give us a little bit more information and then let's go into what our main topic is that we discussed for today.
So essentially, like the energy bus for schools will focus on five main principles. So John wrote a book called The Energy Bus in 2007, and schools just gravitated towards this book because it talks all about unity, right? How do you get people working towards a common vision, common goal? And it was a fable. It was about a character who went through a transformation, and this character learned these rules of the road one at a time that the bus driver and the passengers on this bus were giving him so he could turn his life around. So schools love the story, love the principles. So we developed a program that schools could use these principles on their campus. And I'm talking about principles like create a positive vision, fuel your ride with positive energy, no energy vampires, right? Love your passengers, enjoy the rides. So those were the SCL positive mindset principles. So we help schools. We give them classroom activities guides, staff development guides, assemblies guides, and how they could use these principles all over their campus. Like they become an energy bus school. They brand themselves. They put the posters up. They have the whole bus road theme going. You know, we're all on the bus together. That's really what it's about. And what we've done too is like I've done staff workshops for, 12, 13 years and have developed a half day workshop. And now we're certifying people, educators, people who maybe want to leave education to go and be able to deliver these same workshops that I'm doing to their network, to their schools, or creating a business on their own. So
I have a question before you move on. So when you go into schools, yes, you work with teachers, but do you also have a program that is student facing?
That's what the program really is. The heart of it is because the classroom activities guide gives the teachers and students ways that they can learn these energy bus principles and use it in their life to have a positive mindset.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that was clear for my audience in case they wanted to connect with you on
very
a level like that.
student-centric. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Now moving into the adult centered part of it.
Yeah. The adult centered part of it is, that's the part where I can't have, teachers, staff, they're not going to want to share these energy bus rules with students or doing it in a way where they're fully engaged unless they really know that piece. They can
internalize
themselves. They can internalize it. There's meaning to what they're reading in the book. So that's why I'll go in and do a lot of PD on the energy bus for schools because these principals they're like, hey, we need to get this staff on the bus. Help us to make this relevant and worthwhile and prove that this concept works for these teachers. Get them to help them to just attach meaning to it and make it real in their world. So they're going to want to share it with their students. That's the PD piece that I do with schools. Yes.
When you are doing PD, I know I was in the classroom for several years and then I moved into leadership but before that I was doing some things to help grow my leadership skills and professional learning or professional development was part of that. And it's a different world when you go from the classroom and you're teaching students to teaching a group of adults. So kudos to you for that, for sure, because it's not always easy just to do that. And so you're making it to where they get the whole package and they understand how not only just to implement it, but implement it in a way that it's received well.
Right. And because if it's not received well, right, if you're not fully engaged with the material as a listener there, the material is going to just live and die in that room. They're not going to be passionate to take it to students and even to take it home and interact with their families about what it means to have a positive mindset, what it means to have a vision, what it means to drive with purpose, right, which some of these energy bus rules talk about. So I try to really work hard to make the PD meaningful for these teachers so they walk away saying, hey, that was worth my time. So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I understand that for sure. So what does that look like on your end when you're thinking about, okay, these are classroom teachers and I want them to be able to present dynamic professional development and professional or like very dynamic lessons. Give me some tips for my audience. My audience are teachers who are wanting to move into leadership. So, it's different when you are talking to a group of adults instead of a group of students. And so you have to think differently and you have to prepare differently. So what are some tips that you can give them, some strategies, anything you can share?
It's definitely a whole different animal when you're jumping into that presenter role. And I would say I just did a presentation where it was to a school, and I had a school board member at the presentation who wants to do what I do. She wants to be a certified trainer in our program because we are certifying people to do this. And she was just observing, auditing, and at the end, she was like, "Wow, that's completely different than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to have to really work hard to change my strategy a little bit." And this is somebody who's been doing presentations for a long time. So I think one of the first things that I really try to do is I try to, number one, get them to understand this is going to be a light conversational style day. So I want them to like me at the beginning. Okay. Cause I know, right. I know that there's walls that come up with teachers have seen a lot of PD over the years, right? And they've probably seen, unfortunately, a lot of either bad PD or, PD that's very academic, or here's a math curriculum. Here's something that which is still important, right? But very just kind of rote. So I think there's a stigma involved there that it's just going to be motivational and, it's going to, just get you riled up then and then not going to be able to do anything with it. So,
One thing that you're talking about, I know I have been an educator for a long time, and I've had PD that I'm like, okay, this is great for today. And then I'm like, okay, you're right. I'm fired up. Let's go do this. And then I get to the classroom or I get to another presentation. I'm like, okay, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do. I don't remember half the content. I don't remember how to implement it or apply it or any of that stuff. So do you teach that part of it too?
That's the sustainability piece, right? So you talked about your research. My PhD research is all on sustainable professional development. So what I do differently, what I have my team do differently is, number one, if I'm going to go into a PD session, this is what I would tell your trainers too, people who want to become trainers. I'm going to show them material. I'm going to show them how it relates to their life, their personal life too. Hey, so that makes it personal. But then the other piece is we actually talk about a plan on how you're going to use this material in every aspect of your school. So school communication, classroom activities, staff development, parents. So
it's transferable also. So it's sustainable and transferable.
And when you accomplish that, then all of a sudden they walk away with a written plan. They talked about it. They know exactly what to do after I'm gone. And many of them will become part of our program, which in turn gives them all the information to be able to use all year. So I think that's what makes what I do a little bit different, is that sustainability and transferability piece where they were sitting there saying, okay, I'm actually going to be using this 6-7 months from now. Oh, and I can use it at home with my family. Okay. So I'm now double interested.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
tell us some more about this.
Yeah, that's the piece. So you got to get them. Your presentation style has to be conversational. It has to be likable at the beginning, and you have to make sure it's sustainable and transferable, your material. And then the other piece of it is the way I design PD is the way I think teachers like to learn too, which is really hands-on. So, and I show them at the beginning, and we don't do anything too hokey where the trust fall and stuff like that. But I do build in some icebreaker things that get people up and moving a little bit because I think it's needed. But I show them from the beginning, and then we mix it in throughout the PD session. I get them up. They go to stations where they have to do different things. They have to talk in their group. They have to present. They have to create something. So that's very hands-on. It's very rarely me just talking the whole time. So my advice for your listeners would be make your PD hands-on, interactive, engaging from the very beginning. Like, don't give a long speech about 20 minutes at the beginning. get them up, moving, doing something right away, and show them, actually say to them, hey, today is going to be all about activities, discussion, interaction. We're not going to be sitting there. That's going to help them to be like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not going to be bored. I'm going to be engaged.
Right. Right. And that is it, because I learn by doing, not just by hearing. So I have to hear it, see it, and do it before it is solid in my brain. And so I think a lot of other educators are that way too, not because they just need all of those ways to learn for it to be solidified, but we're busy. We have a lot of things in our head and we think we're in tune, or we think we're paying attention, and then we miss a part or something, or at that moment we're not focused and we don't really see how it works. And then by that time, the presenter's moved on to something else, and it's never really solidified in a way that it's usable once you leave that workshop.
They have to be able to work through the material, chew on it a little bit, digest it a little bit, right? Play with it a little bit, talk about it. And, you know, teachers are very high energy folks. I've worked with teachers for over a decade plus. So rarely do you see them just sitting there doing nothing, right? Even on planning periods, whatever, if you're fortunate enough to have that, they're cutting stuff, they're doing stuff, they're talking, they're always moving in the classroom. There's very rarely a movie day, right? So PD should reflect that energy that they have. They don't want to be sitting there just doing nothing, right? You're right. Their thoughts will take over. So I want them to be I want to give them an avenue to talk and explore and talk with me. And I don't want to ever lecture at somebody or lecture at them. I want it to be a facilitative, interactive conversation, and my body language and my smile, my demeanor will prove that it will be.
Yeah. And I agree with that totally. I remember when I very first started in leadership and I became a principal for the first time, and I had teachers that were literally, because I was not the dynamic person at the beginning, like I should have been. I learned a lot as I got seasoned, but I remember having teachers bring things to work on while we were having professional development. And you're right. They were cutting, they were doing, but it wasn't during their prep time. It was during our meeting, our workshop or whatever. And so I'm sure they were not focused on what I was saying to them because they were doing 100 other things at that time.
And I've had teachers that, you know, they'll have their, you know, I've had teachers grade near me. I've had laptops out, and I understand that, but I always say to the principal, I always whisper, I'm like, hey, could you tell them, like, no technology. I promise I'm going to be engaging. Like, so sometimes you have to say that, but I get it. There's a lot that they want to do. And especially at the beginning of the year when I have a lot of in-services, where do they really want to be? Right. Mm-hmm. Their classroom. So,
right. Exactly.
You know, and I asked the principal, I'm like, hey, have they had a chance to go in their rooms yet? And at least, you know, been in that space. So I was trying to suggest, hey, let's do PD a few days after they've gotten into the rooms and they feel a little bit better, because I get it. That's where they want to be. So
exactly. Yeah. But if you get them up and moving, like at the beginning, you almost set that tone to where they're like, it's not even worth getting my stuff out because I know I'm going to be up moving. And so just that engagement itself, which is what I tell teachers also, when you are engaging in your delivery, then you don't have to worry about kids being off task because they want to be part of what you're doing because it's exciting and they're learning. And so that other stuff isn't as important at that moment because the content you're delivering is so engaging and they're learning so much at that moment.
Exactly. You have to be able to engage with them. And, you know, and I've also, and another thing I would suggest to your listeners too, is I've changed my tone at the beginning. Before I do that first initial burst activity, I come in with an attitude of gratitude for the teachers that are in front of me. And I just say, I thank them. And I mean it too, for inviting me on their campus, for giving me their time and energy. I respect the work that you do. I've always loved school and teachers from my past, right? I always try to, and I'm real when I say it because it's true. I'm not pandering. I'm not gaslighting or anything. It's true. And I want them to feel that before we jump into the activity. So they know, hey, we're going to slow down here. I really do care about you. I may talk about my own kids. Hey, I have 2 kids in public schools right now. I get it. Right. I, I know how hard you all are working because I see how hard my boys' teachers are working. So just coming in and making sure, if you're going to that world, remember, it's knowing your audience. Like that's one of the biggest things I can say to your
Yes.
listeners. Know your audience, know who they are, know what they value, know how they want to be spoken with and communicated to,
Mm-hmm.
and play to those areas, obviously without pandering, make sure it's real. When you know your audience, you're going to kind of know how to relate to them a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So talk to me just a little bit about the length of your program. Is this you come in once or twice and you're done? What does that look like?
Most of the time, if they're becoming a certified energy bus school, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
character strong, a leader in me, a lot of times I will come in and do a half day or a full day workshop at the beginning of the year just to get them going, launch them out, give them their plan,
Mm-hmm.
make energy bus real, create those relationships. But what I like to do differently too is I meet monthly with all of my energy bus schools. So if you're in the program, we have a monthly virtual call where all my schools get invited to log in and we talk about education issues. We talk about, what's going on with the program. Hey, how are these activities doing? What are you all doing differently? Because we give our schools the ability to create beyond what we give you, because I don't want to be micromanaged and I don't want to micromanage my schools. So we're talking monthly, right? We have
So
a
this is
private
monthly for the
Facebook
entire
page.
year?
For the whole year. Yep.
Okay.
So September,
Wonderful.
May, all the way. So the leaders, the principals can log in, see me, see all our other principals. And that helps to keep things alive and running. And then I can check in and be like, hey, I haven't seen, John Elementary in 4 or 5 months on my coaching call. Maybe I should check in with them and see how things are
Right.
going, or put them in touch with somebody who can help. So that helps me to be able to shepherd my flock a little bit.
Right. And not to mention, you probably learn as much. I find that I learn so much from other people.
Oh, yeah.
Even when I think I've got it down pat, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that, because we all have one thought process. And then that's the whole point in networking and collaborating, is to get those other perspectives and those other ideas to grow yourself. And so just that whole dynamic is wonderful, because what one school does, another school maybe didn't think of doing, and you might not have even thought of that. And you're like, wow, that's awesome. Let's add that to the program. So it's a great way to learn from each other.
John Gordon and I always say the genius is in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And one advice too for your folks who are going to be presenting as well, let your audience talk. Like provide so many open-ended questions. You just sit back and be quiet and let them talk with you, let them get the ideas out. You'll come across more genuine and conversational and organic when you can just have a conversation with people about the material instead of just sticking to your hard notes and script. Go beyond that. And to your point, you said I get ideas for the program. That's 100% true. I try to revamp the activity guide yearly because I have schools that jump in for multiple years. And the new activities we come up with are from those coaching calls. I take notes and say, hey, I'm adding that next year. Oh, I'm adding that next year. So it's created by teachers for teachers for sure.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So we are getting close on time. So what I would like you to do is give my teachers who are ready to move into leadership, and they're like, okay, I want to like do a little bit of professional learning first. I like be a presenter before I move in, just so I can build my resume and build my skills. What is a tip that you can give them that they can implement as soon as they're like right now, tomorrow?
So as far as if they want to, they're a teacher, they want to jump into a leadership role, but they want to make that bridge to that, what's something they can do in that area?
Yeah, using like professional development, because I encourage my teachers who are ready to move into leadership, but they're just not quite there yet. I encourage them to do leadership type activities to build their skills, and professional learning and presenting is one of those things that I encourage them to do. So what is a tip that you can give them right now that they can implement on their next professional development presentation?
Well, in that sense, I'm going to say if you are in that position, make sure your content is focused on culture, because I believe that if you're trying to get into a leadership position, I think you want your principal and district level folks to see that you are culture and vision centric, that
Mm-hmm.
you're able to talk eloquently about it, you have credibility, where you're talking about the importance of culture, how you build it, why it's important, and how the people in that audience can contribute to the culture building process. Because I think if you're a leader, you should be focused on managing people, managing relationships, managing culture, setting a vision, and then executing that vision. So you want others to see you as somebody who is able to do that, right? And they want to be able to see you can do that. So if I could give them some talking points, I would definitely say that is something they can do. And just a quick one-off. We have a friend she called my wife an hour ago, and she's an AP, and she's going for a principal interview like today.
Mm-hmm.
And she called to say that she's using the principles and the language from the Energy Bus in her interview because she wants to talk about culture. She wants them to see that she's a culture builder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just ask your superintendents, your principals, district level folks, if you ask them, hey, I want to give presentation. Can I do the next beginning teacher presentation? Can I just go speak at this conference you're having? Can I stop? Why wouldn't they let you do that? Right? They want
Exactly.
ambition.
Exactly.
Go ask that. Just go put yourself out there and say, I want to speak wherever, whenever, at school board meetings, at workshop meetings, create an event, right? Just say you want to be there and present. The more you can do it, the stronger and more confident you'll get, and the more you'll actually, boost your image and presence a little bit.
Right. Exactly. Wonderful. All right. So if my audience wants to get in contact with you, if they are listening and they're like, oh, wow, I think the Energy Bus would be awesome to bring to our school, or they really want to learn more about professional learning, the way you do it, how can they get in contact with you?
One thing I like to pride myself on is accessibility. So I'll give you my direct email, and it's jim@johngordon.com, JON Gordon.com, jim@johngordon.com. And, our website is simple. It's energybus4schools.com, energybus4schools.com. You can learn all about the program, our certified trainer program. I know you have folks who maybe want to step into facilitator roles. I'm currently certifying people to be able to do that and provide them training on that. I have to do one today. Actually, I'm doing a private training for somebody. So I'm here to help. I'm here to facilitate workshops, everything. I'm passionate about this, and I hope your listeners can feel that through the airwaves here.
I think so. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been a great conversation, and my audience knows that I will have all of the links to his contact information in the show notes. So you won't have any trouble connecting with him, especially if you would like to bring the Energy Bus to your school, because that would probably be something really good to check into. I'm no longer in the public school setting, but if I had known before, I probably would have contacted you and had you come talk to my group. So Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And for the rest of you, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you back here next week.